Hello students, I am Dr. Neil Gupta and is working in the Department of Biochemistry, Himalayan Institute of Medical Sciences. Today in this presentation, I will talk about various factors affecting the production of vitamin D. Vitamin D has many beneficial effects in our body. It is well known fact that vitamin D controls calcium metabolism and maintains healthy bone. Now, beside these benefits, research has shown that there are additional benefits of sunlight exposure in addition to vitamin D production and its consequent effects. These beneficial effects include, but are not limited to, reduced risk of cancer and mortality, strengthening innate immunity, decreasing risk of autoimmune disorders, enhancing cardiovascular health, uplifting mental health, reducing depression and neurocognitive dysfunction. Now today in this presentation, I will discuss the various factors which affect vitamin D synthesis. As we all know that sunlight UVB spectrum is important in the production of vitamin D. Now the factors which affect sunlight reaching the skin will ultimately affect the vitamin D production. Now the first factor I would like to discuss is the latitude of the place where you are situated. Okay, so this has quite a significant effect on vitamin D synthesis. Now the reason is that all of the UVC spectrum of sunlight, which falls under 200 to 280 nanometer, and all of the UVB radiation spectrum, that is approximately up to 290 nanometer, is efficiently absorbed by the stratospheric ozone layer. Now, in addition, the ozone layer absorbs approximately 99% of the UVB radiation falling under the wavelength 291 to 320 nanometer. And only 1% of solar UVB radiation ever reaches the Earth's surface, even in the summer at noontime. So you know this, how this 1% of UVB radiation reaches Earth's surface is very important, and this will ultimately affect the vitamin D synthesis. Now to understand it better, let's first see what is the angle of insolation. Now the angle of insolation is the angle at which sun rays strike a particular location on Earth. Now this angle keeps on decreasing as we move away from the equator toward poles. As you can see in this slide, from 90 degree at equator, it decreases to 23.5 degree at poles. So this increase in the path length of solar UVB to reach the Earth's surface at poles leads to decrease in vitamin D production, especially during winter season. Now it is observed that due to extra distance the sun rays has to travel at poles, no vitamin D is produced during winters. Very, very interesting. About 33 degree north or south of the equator. Now I will show you some interesting study. Now this slide shows the percentage of vitamin D formation in higher latitudes in both the hemisphere throughout the year at various locations about 33 degree north or south of the equator. Now, and you will be surprised to see a typical U-shaped curve which confirms the effect of latitude on vitamin D formation. Now this effect was further observed by Jitterman and his colleagues, who observed a negative correlation between latitude and serum vitamin D levels in subjects of various age groups. Now these observations indicate that latitude has a dramatic influence on the cutaneous production of vitamin D3 and therefore on person's vitamin D status. Next factor which I would like to discuss is air pollution. Now, even if we are living near equator and getting good sunlight, there are various gases in atmosphere like nitrous oxide and sulfur dioxide. Now, these can absorb UVB light and will hamper its availability to the Earth's surface. Now, these gases increases during air pollution and are very common in metro cities. Therefore, increase in air pollution will decrease the vitamin D production in the population living in these metro cities. Another important factor is altitude, that is height of a place. Now, this plays a dramatic influence on the amount of solar UVB radiation that reaches the Earth's surface. And the reason is very simple. The higher the altitude, shorter the path UVB has to travel to reach the Earth's surface. Now I would like to present another interesting study where level of vitamin D and its photoproducts were measured in the month of November at various altitudes at 28 degree north of equator. Now it has been seen that there was five-fold increase in vitamin D level at the Everest base camp situated at 5300 meter as compared to Agra, which was at an altitude of 169 meter. Now, yet another important factor is skin pigmentation by melanin. Now, human beings have evolved near equator and developed a natural pigment, that is melanin, which has an absorption spectra of 290 to 700 nanometer. Now, this effectively absorbs UVB radiation, as you can see from this slide. Before we move further, let me give you a quick run through the classification of various skin types. Now, they are classified from type 1 to type 6 with increased melanin concentration, resistant to sunburn and tanning as we move from type 1 to type 6. Type 1 always burn, does not tan, easily tans poorly, tans after initial burn. Type 4 burns minimally, tans easily. Type 5 rarely burns and tans dark easily. Type 6 never burns, always tans darkly. Now, if we summarize from type 1 to 6, there is increase in resistance to sunburn and more prone to tanning. Now, though the type 6 skin is quite heavily pigmented, but still UVB radiation is able to penetrate the epidermis to form vitamin D, but to a smaller extent. Now, I will present here an interesting study where light colored skin type 2 and colored skin type 5 was exposed to sunlight for 30 minutes. And it was seen that there was 10 times vitamin D formation in the light colored skin as compared to dark skin, as you can see in this graph here. Now, this shows a positive association between skin lightness and vitamin D formation. Another interesting factor I would like to talk about is aging. Now, it is observed that 7D hydrocholesterol concentration in human epidermis is inversely related to age. And it was found in an interesting study when a group of healthy young adults and aged individuals were exposed to the same amount of UVB radiation in a tanning bed and found that the younger group had around 3 times higher blood levels of vitamin D as compared to the age group, as shown in this graph. Let's move to the final factor which I would like to discuss here. So glass has the property to absorb UVB spectrum. Therefore, exposure of the skin to sunlight that pass through glass, plexiglass and plastic will not result in production of vitamin D3 in the skin. Now, this slide shows the transmission of UVB radiation through air, glass, plastic, and plexiglass. And as it can be seen that there is drastic reduction of UVB by these barriers. In this study, it was shown how glass, plexiglass, or plastic prevented the formation of pre-vitamin D formation. This knowledge will help you when you are building your new house or thinking about constructing a sunroom, because these materials will prevent UVB entry into your sunroom and will not be effective in vitamin D production. I hope you have learned something new today and believe this information will be helpful in making you aware how vitamin D production is affected by various factors and how you can use this information to enhance your vitamin D production and enjoy benefits of sunlight exposure. Thank you and keep learning.